Decima Flottiglia MAS, or the 10th Assault Flotilla, was a special sabotage unit of the Royal Italian Navy during World War II. The 10th Assault Flotilla was active during the Battle of the Mediterranean and took part in a number of daring raids on Allied shipping. These operations involved surface speedboats, human torpedoes, and assault frogmen. During the war, the unit took part in more than a dozen operations which sank or damaged 5 warships, totaling 72,000 tons, and 20 merchant ships totaling 130,000 tons. Their most successful mission was the raid on Alexandria. It was carried out on December 19, 1941 by divers who attacked and disabled 2 Royal Navy battleships in the harbor of Alexandria, Egypt, using manned torpedoes. On December 19, the Italian submarine Syri released 2 manned torpedoes 2 kilometers from Alexandria Commercial Harbor, and they entered the naval base when the British opened their defenses to let 3 of their destroyers pass. There were many difficulties for the divers. First, the engine of the torpedo stopped and the 2 frogmen had to manually push it, then one of them had to surface due to problems with the oxygen provider. But in the end, although all the divers were made prisoners, they succeeded in severely damaging both Queen Elizabeth and Valiant, disabling them for 18 months and 7 months respectively. This represented a dramatic change of fortunes against the Allies from the strategic point of view during the next 6 months. The Italian fleet had temporarily wrestled naval supremacy in the east-central Mediterranean from the Royal Navy. Valerio Borghese was an Italian Navy commander during the regime of Benito Mussolini's National Fascist Party and a prominent hardline neo-fascist politician in post-war Italy. As a naval commander, he took part in several raids with the flotilla, and in May 1943, Borghese took command of the entire unit. Later, he pioneered new techniques of naval commando warfare. After the success of the Alessandria undertaking, Borghese traveled to Europe to gather information that could help carry out other war actions. In Paris, he met Karl Donitz, with whom he intended to plan operations. In the summer of 1942, he returned to Paris, where he had a new conversation with Donitz, but obtained no results. Therefore, he decided to act independently. He began to consider the idea of an attack on New York, not so much for a possible military success, but for a moral victory. In July 1942, he planned a very ambitious project, and attacked the New York harbor. The Italian submarine Leonardo da Vinci base in Bordeaux was chosen as the approach vessel. The submarine was supposed to transport a small CA-type pocket submarine to the mouth of the in a special well created in place of the bow gun. According to the specification, the submarines of the CA project should have the smallest possible size and displacement of no more than 15 to 17 tons. It is known that the basis of the design of the submarine CA was a robust hull, inside which was placed all the main equipment. All other external parts were attached to this unit. The submarine had unusual hull lines formed by several curved surfaces. The lower part of the body had a shape close to the cylindrical, and the upper was narrow due to the need to accommodate torpedo tubes. In the aft part there was a tapering compartment with a propeller and a developed plane with a rudder. Despite its small size, the CA submarine had a pronounced deckhouse with a retractable periscope. The total length of 2 CA submarines of the first series was 10 meters, the maximum width did not exceed 2 meters. On the surface, the submarines had a displacement of about 13 tons. In the rear part of the hull there was a diesel-electric power plant with an internal combustion engine with an 60 horsepower. Such units allowed submarines to reach speeds up to the 6 knots on the surface and to 5 knots at the depth. The strength of the hull, according to various data, allowed to descend to a depth of 40 meters. The sub had a 2-man crew, who had to do all the work. 2 ultra-small CA-type submarines were handed over to the customer in April 1938, and soon went to the test. In documents, submarines appeared under the symbols CA-1 and CA-2. The ground for the first tests was near Bergamo. The size and depth of this reservoir allowed to check the main parameters of the new technology and to identify some problems. After correcting the deficiencies discovered, 2 submarines again went to the test. This time it was supposed to check them not in fresh lake water, but in salty sea water. 2 submarines were transported to Venice, where he passed the second stage of tests. For the planned New York mission, the sub had to be redesigned. Torpedo tubes were removed from the outer surface of the hull. Instead, on the new superstructure, fastenings were installed for 8 mines weighing 100 kilograms each. Such a weapon was to be used by the crew to attack ships and other objects of the enemy. The crew of the submarine, consisting of 3 people, was supposed to use wetsuits and breathing apparatus closed type. To exit the submarine when performing a combat mission, a special hatch was provided at the bottom. Arriving at the location of the target, the crew had to exit the submarine and remove mines from its hull. Then the mines were placed on the target, detonated fuses with a clockwork, and the crew could return. Due to all the changes in the project, the designers managed to significantly improve the basic characteristics of the 2 submarines. The main prerequisite for this was an increase in the size and weight of the structure. The maximum underwater speed increased to 7 knots, and the maximum cruising range per battery charge was 70 nautical miles. Unlike the previously existing human-guided torpedoes, submarines of the CA type could be used in more serious operations at longer distances from the bases. For this reason, the Borghese hoped to use them to attack enemy bases on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean. The main targets were the British base in Freetown and of course New York. Borghese was supposed to lead the small submarine, with some assault divers and 28 small explosive charges on board. The divers would go to the port to mine ships. The works were carried out in August 1942, and in September the release tests of the Midget Submarine from the Da Vinci were carried. The tests obtained appreciable results. The Da Vinci, submerged at around 12 meters, managed to release the small sub and recover it. In reality, recovery was a very remote hypothesis, and it had already been foreseen that the members of the assault group would have to destroy the vehicle at the end of the operation and then reach the mainland and surrender. In March 1943, the Leonardo da Vinci made her last and most successful patrol to the South Atlantic. After the last sinking at the end of April, Leonardo da Vinci turned for home. On May 22, 1943, off the coast of Spain, her commander unwisely signaled his intention to head for Bordeaux. The submarine's position having been fixed by direction finding, on May 23 the destroyer HMS Active subjected the submarine to an intense depth charge attack and sank it 300 miles west of Vigo. There were no survivors. The New York mission was postponed following the loss of the Da Vinci on May 23, 1943, and then cancelled following the Italian armistice 2 months later. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss my future work, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you, and see you in the next video.